Hi, welcome back to the channel. My name's Rebecca, I'm 45 years old and I used to suffer from multiple sclerosis, but I no longer experience any of the symptoms since starting the carnivore diet just over 2 years ago. In today's video, I wanted to talk about beating depression on the carnivore diet. And I do think that I'm somebody who often talks about this side of chronic illness, the dimension of chronic illness that is mental health, PTSD, depression, and that's because it's been half of the battle for me. And so my journey on the carnivore diet has been one of moving through that and with time rising above that, and it hasn't been easy. So I'll just very briefly discuss my own personal experience with depression, and then I'll move on to some of the physiological changes that happen on the carnivore diet that put you in a better position to be able to work through depression and ultimately overcome it. Okay, the first thing to say is when you have MS, one of the symptoms is depression. So if you have multiple sclerosis, you will know this. It's actually one of the physical symptoms that happen to you. So I suppose that's because of neuroinflammation. That's a possibility. I don't know if it might also be related to the gut, leaky gut. I don't exactly know why it would be that MS would cause depression as a physical symptom, but it does. So that's difficult. But on top of that, you obviously have the emotions that come from the impact that the disease has on your life. And that would vary depending on the severity of your symptoms and the amount of support that you have. I very much experienced a long, deep depression when I was very sick. I don't know if that was because of neuroinflammation, but I certainly know that it was to do with my life circumstances, so maybe a combination of the two. And I was on antidepressants for a long time. I weaned myself off those antidepressants when I moved to Spain, so that was in early 2020. I was diagnosed in 2016, so I must have been on antidepressants for maybe 3 years. I think I started in early 2017 on the antidepressants. I decided to wean myself off them because I didn't like the fact that they block your emotions, and at the beginning I needed that. I needed to not be experiencing the emotional impact of what was happening, partly because I was trying to finish my PhD at the time, and I just, I wanted to throw everything into that and just get through it, and partly because it was just too painful. So I did need those antidepressants at the beginning. But I didn't like the fact that I was dependent on a pharmaceutical, and one that was changing my natural state of being. I'm an emotional person and I express my emotions, I communicate my emotions, and suddenly I was stunted, I wasn't feeling anything, and I didn't like it. And I also didn't like the idea that perhaps something might happen in the world which would mean that there was no longer access to the antidepressants. It made me feel vulnerable and anxious that suddenly something might happen, like the pandemic, which might complicate access, supply chain, or whatever it might be. I just didn't want to feel vulnerable to something that I was essentially dependent on. So I weaned myself off them, and I think that was a really good move, and it was part of my fight for reclaiming my health and reclaiming my life. And I think I was managing more or less okay, running up to the time where I started the diet. I guess I wasn't fully healed, but I was doing okay. I was in a fairly good place before I started the diet. But then, just after I started the diet, you will know, if you've been following my channel, that my life basically blew up in my face. A relationship that I got myself into, because I was vulnerable and a bit depressed and lonely, became horribly toxic and led to some awful drama, which basically overshadowed my return to health on the diet. So suddenly I was on the carnivore diet. I was in a much better place physically, so I was, I had everything set up to be in great mental health as well, but I was suddenly plunged into a situation that was so difficult that inevitably I became depressed. So as I say, you will know this if you've been following my channel, because, well, actually a lot of it did take place behind the scenes. I haven't shared everything that happened on the channel, but I did share quite a lot of it, and I also allowed some of that depression to be visible on my channel. So rightly or wrongly, that's what I felt the need to do at the time. So you'll know, if you've been following my channel, that it just hasn't been an easy road, and the carnivore diet didn't magically make everything in my life happy, clappy, singy, dancy, butterflies and rainbows. Life has been extremely challenging. Yeah, so my whole first year on the diet, I was struggling with a deep depression, and that was not to do with my MS, because my MS symptoms cleared up pretty much immediately. That was to do with life events. But as I've said, you know, I think that I wouldn't have actually got through those times if I hadn't been on the carnivore diet. It was like the one thing that I had left, that I was clinging to. You know, how can I give up now because I've just got my health back? I have to stick around to see what life could be like now that I've got my health back. Don't let this finish you. And it nearly did. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It nearly finished me off, all of the events that happened just as I got my health back. I felt like my return to health had been made a mockery of. But there was this miracle that had happened. And I also just felt a need to share that with the world so that I could potentially help other people as well. And that gave me a sense of purpose. So I had hope and purpose on some level because of the carnivore diet. So that's my personal experience of depression on the carnivore diet. I still have my bad days and I have good days. I'm in a process of actively healing. I do put that down to the carnivore diet very much. I put the fact that I'm still here down to the carnivore diet. I put the fact that I am able to get out of bed every day and continue on this road towards whatever my future might be, I put it down to the carnivore diet. There are physiological changes as well, but I would also say that there are psychological elements that are very clear, which is that once you've got your health back, once your symptoms of whatever chronic illness, whatever it might be, that the carnivore diet has helped put you back into balance, you can now make choices that will lead to happier times and not depression. So, you know, you're not going to be isolated anymore. You're not going to be as hopeless as you were, because you have got the tools to work for your life, to fight for your life. So psychologically, I very much felt that the carnivore diet has put me in a place where I am primed to go out and distract myself from whatever bad memories I have or trauma that I have. And I can go out and I can make new friendships, new relationships that will nourish me and sustain me. And I can go out and I can have fun, and I can walk the dogs and walk up mountains and go on hiking trails, and whatever it might be that I choose to do. I could go out dancing if I wanted to. I could go on a cycle ride. You know, go swimming. There's plenty of things that I can now do because I'm not struggling with MS symptoms that are isolating me and therefore making me depressed. So that's a kind of very obvious level where the carnivore diet sets you up to just make life what you want it to be. But there's also physiological changes which happen. So I've already alluded to one of them, which is that two actually, with the carnivore diet, with multiple sclerosis, you have neuroinflammation, and you know, some studies say that there's a gut microbiome issue, both of which the carnivore diet corrects. And I think that's because you have more stable glucose levels and you're not having insulin spikes. And I think, you know, that's a big cause of inflammation in the body and in the brain. Instead of that, you have ketones, which are a much more neuroprotective and sustainable form of fuel. So your body is not spiking and crashing. There's an antidepressant effect of having higher levels of ketones. They also regulate hormones. And as a woman, I can tell you that hormonally, you can be all over the frickin' place. And it's actually really difficult. Fat is what produces hormones and keeps them in balance. So it's absolutely fundamental to your overall state of balance in the body, both physical and emotional. So eliminating sugar and eliminating processed food and carbohydrates and replacing that with natural animal fats is just one of the best things you can do for your overall state of being. Gut and brain inflammation connected to cortisol levels and to hormone dysregulation. And I am no nutritional expert, but what I've experienced is physiological balance having gone carnivore. Also, there's things like weight loss. So some people do the carnivore diet specifically for weight loss, and emotional eating and weight gain are a huge source of depression. So when you're back in control of that and you don't have sugar cravings and you're seeing that you're losing the weight, but you're still healthy, that's a both physical and emotional benefit of the diet. So there's also the fact of nutrient density. So animal products supply high levels of omega-3s and B vitamins and minerals like zinc and iron. These things are all anti-inflammatory and neuroprotective and are really important for serotonin and dopamine synthesis. When you look into the nutritional science of it all, which I know nothing about and I would never have looked into if I hadn't started the diet and felt the effects, if you start looking into it, you start to realize that actually it's what we need. It's like everything that we're eating that is superfluous to our diets, such as sugar and carbohydrates and all the seed oils and crap, are just putting us in a situation where we're going to be weakened physically and psychologically, which is a recipe for depression and for ill health. But once you start eating the appropriate human diet with all of its nutrients and more sustainable fuel source, then you're basically setting your body up to, even before you go out there and make your life really wonderful, you are setting your body up to be in balance and to be functioning optimally. And also, the carnivore diet comes with an amazing community of people. And it's not just any community, it's a community of people that are fighting against the mainstream and fighting against the dominance of pharmaceuticals and fighting against illnesses and coming together to do that. So it's a very interesting community and rewarding community to be part of. So it's brought me a strong element of connection as well. Just about a month or so ago, I had a visitor from across the Atlantic. My dear friend Alison, I've met through my YouTube channel. She's part of the carnivore community. She's actually had an interview with Dave Mack. Hi, if you're watching. She and her wife came out to visit me from America. She was just here with me for 2 days. We were just up all night talking. It's such a strong connection, and I'm just so grateful to have met her. And there's so many others as well who I've genuinely formed friendships with. That's been another benefit of the carnivore diet, is the community that it's brought me. So yeah, I would definitely say that with the carnivore diet, although it's been a long journey and it's ongoing, I would say that beating depression has been a massive part of it. I've beaten many things through the diet: multiple sclerosis, addiction, abusive relationship, but also depression. Depression's been a big one. So I'm just really grateful for that. Okay, well, there you go. I guess that's all I have to say on the topic. So take care, guys, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.